Hello, everybody. This is Mikelat, and you are participating in How to Convert Followers into Customers. I did it, so can you. We're going to give you some really practical information today about how you can take your business to the next level by tapping into the craziness that is online marketing. And we're welcoming some people into the call. Kathleen already said how before we not how, but hello before we officially started. And Jackie is saying good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now this is me. Let me show you me. My name is Mark Mikelat, and I have been helping small business owners and entrepreneurs with their online marketing for, golly, 12 plus years. And my company is called Building Aspirations. And because that's what we do. We take what your aspiration is in life and we infuse it into a good business strategy. And if you are living and breathing what you want to do and who you are, your business is going to be enormously successful. And we are a strategic partner with Constant Contact. And Constant Contact is the host today, and they are a provider of email marketing and social media marketing services, and they've got, golly, 650,000 clients worldwide. And we have an extra special treat because we have a success story, a real live success story. On the line right now is your official presenter. I'm just kind of the host. I'm the opening act, so to say. Where Kathleen Reeder is our expert, and she is a wildlife photographer, and oh my gosh, she does phenomenally great pictures. She is the owner of Kathleen Reeder Wildlife Photographer. She is an instructor. She's an author of not one, but two books. Holy cow. Say hello to everybody, Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about my experiences with Constant Contact.
I love it. Yeah. And Kathleen has a lot of energy. She has a lot of great stuff to share with you. And it's not about me, it's about her. And she's going to show you some really practical stuff of how she went through this. So this is not theory, folks. This is what she has done, and she's sharing her secret sauce, her secret recipe with you. And I'm going to transition to her officially in just a few seconds here. And then we're going to monitor the chat box to make sure that any questions get really answered for you so that you have super duper high quality. So I am going to officially transfer to Kathleen right now. And Kathleen, you should have control.
Okay, thank you. I think I do.
Yeah, it looks
Can you
great.
see my screen?
Yes. Good
okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. And thanks so much for Constant Contact to sponsor this webinar for the group. I appreciate everyone attending. My hope is to share some of the tips and things that I've learned in using Constant Contact and using it for online marketing. And hopefully some of what I've done will resonate with you and help you on your path to success. For me, it started with a huge aha moment that I want to share with you, getting some expert advice from Mark specifically, and having the courage to take steps when I wasn't too sure about what I was doing, creating a list within Constant Contact, starting with emails, looking at results, just continuing to improve it as I went along. And what I want to share with you today are 10 tips that have helped me continue to build that list. So it started with a hugely life-changing moment. I was assisting Arizona Highways Photo Workshops with their workshops, and I was in Grand Teton National Park, and that place is just a fantastic location to take landscape pictures, and I was enjoying that, but I found myself gravitating to taking wildlife photos, hearing, oh, there's a bear here in the park, and I was constantly looking for where are the moose and where is the bear, and anything that was moving more than the landscape photos. And it was really on that trip in 2009 when I realized that that was the kind of photography that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I love this saying that Mark Twain said, that Samuel Clemens said the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you found out why. And for me, I found out why in Grand Teton National Park.
Oh, you know what, Kathleen? I love it. I love, and sometimes it can be that little like aha moment in your head that kind of changes everything.
And I think it's true. And if you have to listen to it, you have to be willing to hear it, be open to hearing it. And if you are open to it, I think the messages are always coming in, and you'll know what it is when you feel it. Since then, and when I got back from Grand Teton, I started focusing exclusively on wildlife photography and submitted, and this slide is showing the path that I went to get some of my photos published, and every path is different. This one worked for me. It might work for you. I submitted some photos, actually a photo because they only allow one a month, to Nat Geo's online website, and happened to get one published on their website. And Solent News and Photo Agency, based out of the UK, contacted me about a month later and asked if I would be willing to sign a contract with them to publish photos worldwide. And I thought, geez, who is this company? Didn't know anything about them. Talked to a friend of mine and asked him what his thoughts were. He said, what have you got to lose? So I went ahead and signed the contract, and from there it just snowballed. I have had photos published in multiple publications, and even a couple of years ago had a series of photos that ended up on the NBC Today show, and it was as a result of the contract with Solent that I did that. It wasn't that I contacted the Today show directly. In fact, I had to video the little excerpt that they had, a little presentation that they had on the Today Show from my cell phone on the television, just to get a recording of it so that I could refer to it later. Since then, also Getty Images. I always thought that was a big fortress, and trying to get in the door to send a portfolio to be able to get your photos online with Getty seemed like an insurmountable goal. And one day I get an email from Getty inviting me to be a contributor, and included an email link, and I clicked on that link, and it was like the fortress doors opened up. I thought, oh my gosh, is it this simple when you're invited versus when you're trying to get in the door? It's really been a dream come true to have these opportunities opened up.
I love it. And let me point out to everybody that how it started. You posted a photo online, and then you were contacted by somebody, and you didn't even know who they were.
Yeah, I didn't even know, and I was kind of skeptical, and they sent me a copy of the contract, and I looked at it, and I talked to a good friend of mine who I trust, the ex-editor of Arizona Highways, J.P. Motimer, and he said, what have you got to lose? Would you have tried to sell these photos to these publications internationally on your own? And I thought, there's no way. I remember once it was about 10 o'clock at night, and he called me and he says, I'm in the bookstore, or it was 9 o'clock at night before they closed. He was in the bookstore. He says, I picked up a magazine and I see your photo with your name under it, and it was published as a result of my contract with Solent. So it can happen very kind of serendipitously when you're following your passion. It was in over those next couple of years that I was taking photographs and learning more about wildlife photography, and decided that I wanted to write a book. And I wanted to write a small how-to book that would help people with their wildlife photography. And I happened to be, it's kind of a funny story. I happened to be in the dry cleaner, and I was talking with the gal that worked there, and just in that moment, another woman happened to walk in, and I was telling the woman that I know at the dry cleaner that I wanted to write this book, and this other woman walked in, and she said, well, she wrote a book. And I said, you did? She says, yes, and I worked with someone out in California to help me. And I said, really, would you mind introducing me? And that's how I met Mark, was through a contact in the dry cleaner. And I had a phone interview with Mark, and all I wanted to do was to write my book. And it went so much more than that. I can't even tell you. I thought the reason I hired him to work with Mark was to help me to write a book, but it ended up being so much more. Mark, since I started working with him, asks me thought-provoking questions at each stage to advance my thinking and my actions. He's given me very specific suggestions of tools and approaches when I need them. Other times he just gives me things to think about, but he's encouraged me and he's challenged me, and that's really how I found Constant Contact, was because of Mark. And I knew that I wanted to have some kind of online communication tool. I didn't really know what all I wanted to use it for, but I knew I wanted to be able to sell my book, and thought, well, I need some kind of mailing list to communicate with people about my book. So it was through Mark that I started my photography business, going from being a photographer to having a business, and to publishing a book. And I want to share that the one thing that I truly believe, and that's why I wrote it here on the slide, is that being successful is not about being fearless. Was I afraid of all of these steps I've taken? Yes, every step of the way. But it's not about being fearless, being successful. It's about having the courage just to even take the next step when you're afraid. Just even one step, and that leads to the next step, and pretty soon you're walking. It doesn't, you don't have to have all the answers. It hasn't always been crystal clear. There's been a lot of vagueness about each step of the way and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But I look at the steps that you take as incremental, and that you look for improvement from what you did the step before. And as long as you're making improvement, you're on the right path. And if you look at it as though you don't have to be idealistic and be at the end goal from day one, and just work there incrementally, you'll get there. So I started with Mark and Constant Contact, and since then I did publish. It took about 18 months. I spent a ton of time on it. I probably rewrote my first book 3 times, and probably not something Mark would have suggested that I do, but I felt compelled to change how it was structured. So I did work with Mark, as well as a book designer that helped me with the layout, in December of 2013. Now, since then, the second book that I did is just an ebook, and I did that literally in a week, and that was from presentation notes and things that I'd collected over a couple of years. But what I realized in doing the second book is that I spent probably way more time than I needed to on the first book, that getting the message out is more important than making it perfect. And I think that's been a learning for me, is that perfection is not so critical as improvement is.
Oh my gosh, Kathleen, that is such a nugget of gold here, and let me expand upon that. What she said is so
Sure.
critically. It's don't make it perfect. I literally tell my clients to not do that, because perfection is right next to procrastination. And here's the key, folks. While you are trying to make it perfect, your competition is already doing it. See, they're stealing your opportunities because they're moving forward with less than perfect.
Yeah, so true. And that's something that Mark is having to remind me continually, because I am close to being a perfectionist. That's kind of my stress side. I go to wanting to make things perfect, and the busier I get and the more I do, the less time I have to make things perfect, and the more I realize when I share whatever I've done to this point with other people that they're very accepting of less than perfection and actually glad that I just got it to them. So it's reinforcing itself over time that perfection is not necessary. Since then, in publishing the first book, in fact, it was Mark again who said, "Have you thought about teaching?" And I went to Out of Africa Wildlife Park, which is close to my heart, a location, and I started teaching there in 2012. Since then, I have taught over 50 workshops, and that's in California, in Arizona, Montana, and in Africa. And I am booking some over a year in advance. They're priced anywhere from $150 to multiple thousands of dollars. And with that, I've added to a list of customers or created a list of customers of over 500 people that have attended my workshops. I'm now expanding my services to build photo websites using SmugMug and offering affiliated services through Borrow Lenses, Adobe, and products, and through Amazon. And I have speaking engagements scheduled out as far out as the end of next year, and as I mentioned earlier, being a Getty contributor. So it just truly snowballed for me. I think, again, when you find your passion and you follow it, really incredible things happen, and the hardest part is just taking that first step, and the most fearful step is the first step, but as you just keep taking more and more steps, it does get easier. So I want to share when I started with Constant Contact, that my goal was and still is to share useful wildlife photography information with people that enjoy photography, that enjoy my photos, that enjoy wildlife, and to provide answers to common photography questions in as simple a way as I can. Coming from corporate America, I was with American Express for a number of years, and being in corporate project management and training, it's all about being brief and yet content rich in communications, and I love seeing very rich content in brief ways. I don't like run-on paragraphs, and so I'm kind of particular about how I see communications, and I wanted to follow those principles, apply those principles using Constant Contact to provide information. The benefits of Constant Contact for me has been that I've been able to build a list of loyal followers, people that open my emails and click on the links and read the information, that I've been able to market my photos through Constant Contact. I was able to market and sell my first book. I'm creating customers from followers, and I'm able to sell more stuff, sell more workshops, market information, market benefits like SmugMug and the affiliates through the use of the online marketing tools. So I didn't start out with this grandiose idea of what I wanted to use Constant Contact for. I just knew that I needed a mailing list initially, and I wanted to provide good information around wildlife photography. So how have I used Constant Contact to convert followers into customers? So as we see the tiger jumping in, let's jump in. So I started off with a very simple approach. I wanted to start a list of people that I could send emails to. So on my Facebook page, there's a link from Constant Contact that you can set up to enable people to join a mailing list. And that's where it started. And it took me literally a few minutes to set that up. And that helped to kind of get the ball rolling. And then I want to share with you, this was my first newsletter that I sent out, and there's a number of tips and things that I've learned, and Mark helped me with my first newsletter and reviewed some of the drafts. And again, don't spend too much time on it, but I was still in the mode of let's make it as perfect as I can. So this first email, and my emails tend to be kind of long, but I but I do try to break things up so that it's not just this run-on paragraphs. I think that's really important. But I want to share some tips from the first email that I think have continued to resonate with me that I think would be important to think about if you're doing email communications with Constant Contact. The first tip is to use, they have these social share buttons that you can either turn on or off when you're sending out an email, and to turn them on so that your readers, when they receive an email from you, can share it with their friends. So that's the first tip, is to turn that on. You want to take most advantage of the multiple destinations simultaneously to minimize the amount of work that you spend and maximize the return that you get. The second tip is, and I got this boy from my book designer in helping me with the book, is to reinforce the benefit to your reader right up front. So just read this to you. Dear fellow photographers, you asked to know my post-processing workflow, and for that reason, I'm offering an interactive online session June 20th, where you'll get a complete walkthrough of my digital workflow, and then what the action you want he or she to take, reserve your space today. So if you don't read the entire email, if all you read was the first paragraph, you get the essence of what is it that I'm saying is most benefit to the reader in that first paragraph and what action that I want them to take. The next tip is to make it really easy for your reader to find information. And I have modified and adjusted this approach over the years, but it's essentially the same message. You want it to be easy for the person to skip around in the email. People like to scan information. There's so much out there, so many sources of content that your readers, and it's just being respectful of each other. We don't have the time to look at all of what is being sent out. If you don't take the time to make it easy to skip around in your communications, you run the risk of them not starting out with all good intentions to read it, but thinking, I'll come back to this later. This is too much time.
Let me add a little bit here to Kathleen's point, because this is so 100% dead on. Oh my goodness. And whatever you are saying, you need to cut it in half and cut it in half again. It needs to be and easy, super, unbelievably easy. Like you may think that, like, oh my gosh, this is silly. No. Because people are scanning this, they're in line at Starbucks, they're not paying attention, they're not going to read every single solitary word. You have to make it super duper easy. So yes, absolutely.
And it's in the benefit, it's in the action you want them to take, it's in the topics. Everything that you provide needs to have that same thinking. When I would include information, this again is my very first email that I sent out, so it's been over 3 years ago, in providing a quick synopsis of what the topic was, and then always a read more option and register. In this case, these were 2 workshops that I was leading for Arizona Highways Photo Workshops at that time, and they would tell me that every time an email would come out from me with any kind of reference to a workshop with them, they were getting hits and people signing up. So when you make the information easy to absorb, easy to consume, people will read it, and people are looking for quick answers to their problems or quick solutions to things that maybe they didn't even see as a problem, but you point out what the benefit is or what the problem is, and it resonates with them. They think, yeah, I want to do that. I want to follow this person, and they do click read more and register as a result. Something that is important to me, and I think I get reinforced this with people that attend my workshops, is by providing well-organized tips of information. And in my first newsletter, I sent out it was a very complicated chart, but I do think tables and paragraph headers do help to organize information. So in this tip, I was explaining the importance of considering minimum focus distance, which is how far away your lens is from your subject for the lens to be able to focus, considering that when choosing which lens to use for which wildlife situation. And so I was listing a whole bunch of different lenses, what their minimum focus distance is, how far you have to be away from your subject, and what wildlife subjects work best with that lens. And I received a lot of feedback that this was very helpful, but I do think given the complexity of this topic and how much information was included, and this is an exact snapshot of the email, that it needed to be easy to quick to scan. So table, use of color to show the definition of rows, all kinds of things in just good, solid communication really help to make these kinds of things really useful. So I have continued to provide these kinds of tips, this kind of information for free as a way to get additional followers. In fact, this particular chart is now a free PDF. When someone signs up for my newsletters, they receive this as a PDF for signing up. And I think Mark has always reinforced to me to have a stepping stone of products, something that's free, something that's maybe less than $10, something that's less than $50, something that's less than $100, and you work your way up. And as people move through that continuum, they start off with getting some or wanting or willing to take something from you for free, and then you work them up to the more expensive products over time. You can't take someone from something that's free to something that's $3,000. You just work your way slowly up that chain. And I think giving something for free has to be viewed as something useful, and this has turned out to be a very useful tip to provide for free.
And let me expand upon that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me review what she said. She provided this high value information, and she gave it away for free initially, but she realized, oh my gosh, this is super high value. I'm going to make this a PDF giveaway for people who subscribe to my newsletter. That's what's called an opt-in bonus. You're going to give something of exceptionally high value to your readers as an inducement to encourage them to subscribe. Now, what it is, that's up to you, but it needs to be very high value to your readers. In this case, it was very technical information about the lenses.
Exactly, and I think it's always helpful to have some kind of a benefit for why one would sign up for a newsletter. So, in fact, I'll talk about that in the third webinar that is on the 13th of December about having multiple emails that go out when someone signs up for your newsletter, and that right now in the first email that they receive, I have a 3-email series. They receive this PDF as a high value bonus for signing up. On this chart, and this is showing how important it is to look at results and to assess what you need to change, what you need to improve, and I looked at each of the initial emails very closely and what the results were. When I signed up for Constant Contact, you choose which industry you're in, and they then provide the averages, the email click rates, and I'll talk about these rates that are in that industry, and then you compare your results against that industry. And I chose that the industry that I was in was higher education. And there are 3 result rates that I look at closely. One is the open rate, so this is how many people open the email. The second is the click-through, so how many people opened it and clicked on at least one link in the email. So all those read more or register, click this link to get the PDF, those are all considered click-throughs. And then unsubscribe is how many people choose after they've received your email to opt out of receiving anything further from you. And the Constant Contact says generally if you receive an unsubscribe rate of less than 2%, then you're within industry norms. So it's less about a specific percent and more about just don't go over, you don't want it to be more than 2%. So in the third column, it shows what's the industry average for higher education. So about 17% open emails, about 10% click on a link within them, and something less than 1% unsubscribes as a result. And the first email that I sent out, I got 78%. And I only sent 122 emails, so and I obviously my newsletter is going to people who already have an interest in my photography, so it's not just the out in a random sampling of people sending it to, but I sent it to a list of 122 people that wanted to hear from me, and I had a 78% open rate, a 22% click-through rate, and no one unsubscribed. And I thought, well, that's great. That's very good. Very good results. And just to say that's not just a one-time thing, as I continued to increase the number of people that were on my mailing list and send out monthly newsletters, my open rate stayed pretty consistent, and my click-through rate actually sometimes went significantly higher, and I didn't have anybody unsubscribing. So I think when you make it easy for people to follow the information, provide it in concise and very well organized way, and you make sure it's clear what the benefit is and what actions you want to take, that people respond, and that it works. And I don't have a huge list. Now I have about a little over 1,000 people on the list, but it's people that like my work and like hearing from me, and as a result, I continue to get these kinds of results. So I want to give a tip on the subscriber list. So within Constant Contact, your list of people that you send information to is called your subscriber list. And my subscriber list, so the 1,000 people or so that I have on, it's more than 1,000, but it's about that, are comprised of many small lists. And for me, this has been a critical success factor. Each event that I run, each workshop, and I'll share with you how I've increased that list, but each event, each time that I do something where there's a set number of people or a specific group of people, I create a separate list. And I code the list within Constant Contact by the year, the month, the day, and the event name. So when I bring up my contact lists, which I have about 40, actually I have closer to 60 lists right now, they're all listed and I can see them all by the year, the month, day, and the event name. And for each person that signs up, either from my newsletter or attends one of my workshops, I collect their name, their email address, and their phone number. That's it. That's all I need. When I first started, when I was marketing my book, and anyone who bought the book, yes, I needed their address as well. But for all of my workshops, I don't need to collect address. So I only collect what I absolutely need, and email and name is most critical, and phone number is only if, for whatever reason, the email bounced that went to them, and I need to verify that I have the right email. The benefits of having these separate lists within Constant Contact, all making up my one overall subscriber list, is that I personalize communications. So when I send any emails out, it's always to an individual when it's within an event, because I have their name. I can also track, because I track people's names by event, I can track which events people have participated in the past. This is kind of sharing one of my secrets, because it always impresses people that I know what events they've attended in the past 4 years of mine, and to be able to say, oh yeah, you attended my Arizona Snow and Desert Museum workshop in 2014, or yes, oh, it's so good to see you again. I was in Montana with you 2 years ago. And to have that information and to be able to remember it. In fact, I keep galleries of photos taken at each workshop, so I can go back and even look what the person looked like. When you have a list of 1,000 people and 500 customers, sometimes I find it difficult to remember when I've met someone before, but the constant contact helps me be successful. And it's been great to be able to recognize people. And every time I do a workshop, I print out for myself which events they've attended in the past. So I always have that record in front of me when I'm greeting my workshop participants. And the last nice thing about this, even though it's all split up into small lists within Constant Contact, when I send newsletters out, I send it to all the lists all at once, and Constant Contact takes care of all the duplication. So I only send one email newsletter out to that one copy of that newsletter out to that one person. There's no duplication, and so it's great. For me, I get the separation, and for my customers, they just get one communication when it comes to the newsletters. So ways to, once you've gotten your list started, ways to grow the list. For me, I use new events. Any new event that I run, those names go into Constant Contact onto my subscriber list. I create a new list for the event, and if I've got a person, I always search on the person's name to see if they're already in my list, have already attended something, or have already signed up for my newsletter, and then I add that event to the name. So any new event always ends up with some number of new people that end up on my newsletter list as a result of new events. I have a sign-up form on my website, and I'll talk about that in the third webinar. It's a privy form, and that's worked out really, really nicely. I have the Join My List form on Facebook, and I think interfacing, if you're on Facebook, interfacing to Facebook for newsletter is really, really helpful. The other thing that I do are Facebook ads, and I do those through Constant Contact. If you're on Facebook and you've used Facebook for ads, you can create ads on Facebook just within Facebook. But the reason I really like it going through Constant Contact is that you're able to create an ad in Constant Contact and have it published in Facebook, and it will use the demographics of your current subscriber list in determining who to show the ad to within Facebook, and it won't show it to people that have already seen your newsletter. So you're sending the newsletter to other people on Facebook, but with the same demographics as your subscriber list. To me, that is so intelligent. I mean, I could never figure that out on my own, and to have Constant Contact do it seamlessly is just a godsend. And then lastly, subscribers sharing the emails that I send, and the better the emails, the more that they resonate with the people and they're helpful, the more my followers are interested in sharing them. One of the things that Mark had actually suggested that I do, and I did this, and so I'll share it with you. I was a judge for Coconino County Fair photo contest, and they offered me space to put up some pictures on the walls where I was going to be judging the photos. And Mark suggested, why don't you have a fishbowl where people can put their name and their email into the fishbowl, and the agreement is by doing this, you're signing up for my newsletter and offer a free giveaway. So I thought, oh yeah, okay. So I created a sign and said you could get one of a 16 by 24 wildlife photo, which my cost was only about $20. And as a result of doing this throughout the day, I had these little sheets that you could fill in your name and address or email address. Throughout the day, I ended up getting 400 new subscribers as a result of people signing up, and it would cost me $20, and it cost me the time to type in the email addresses, which in hindsight, I will definitely hire that out to somebody else to do it, because it took me a whole day and I found it really frustrating because people misspelled things, and so a lot of things ended up bouncing back when I'd send future emails out. But even several years later, I still have that initial list for this particular event. I still have about 275 people of those 400 that are still getting my newsletters even today, and you know, you just never know when someone's going to be ready to make that move to buy something from you. So keeping them on the distribution is a great thing. And so I'm really glad that I did this. It was amazing how many people love to get a free giveaway and have no problem signing up for a newsletter. Spend just a couple minutes on a couple more tips. This is a recent email newsletter, and I think that now my photography tips are blog posts on my website, and the newsletters that I send out are a snippet of that information with a read more that then takes them to my website. So that's an improvement that I think is quite important, to draw people to your website. And so that's the way that I bring people to the website, is to get this free tip on my blog page. And secondly, I think having customers that share in your passion, and for me it's wildlife photography, and Jackie Klieger is a good friend of mine. She helps me with the Out of Africa workshops, and she's just a really, really nice, good photographer and just a great lady. And inviting people that you value to be guest bloggers, to write an article, to share their story, to be able to publish that and share that with your newsletter distribution. People like to hear other people's stories, and sometimes you're hearing the same message, but it's in a different way, and people appreciate the varied way that the same messages can be said, and what inspires one person is not the same that inspires someone else. So hearing it from more people than one is always a good thing. And just to share some more current statistics on results, I mentioned earlier, over 1,000 subscribers. Of those, about 500 are customers, and my open rate is about 39%, and the click-through rate is about 22%. Again, the industry averages for open rate is 16 and 9, so significantly higher than industry averages. So something that I'm doing is working, and I think the last tip that I'll share that I think kind of embodies my whole approach is that quality trumps quantity every time, and finding a rhythm with your communication, respecting people's time, and at the same time helping them to remember you. For me, it's about twice per month. I write a blog post weekly, or I try to, but I don't send that out every week. I think weekly is too much. I think daily is too much, but it's whatever your rhythm is and your customer's rhythm, but finding a communication and providing quality information over quantity. And I do thank you. Those were the tips that I wanted to share, and I encourage you to go to my website, sign up for my newsletter if you don't already receive it. I would love to talk to you, would love to share photographing wildlife photography with you. And at this point, Mark, I'll turn it back over to you. I'm going to make you the presenter now. Mark, do you have it now?
I have it
Yes.
now. Yes.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, Kathleen, super duper phenomenal job. Holy God. And
Thank you.
you guys see this? I mean, she just opened up the closet and just this is it, right? You saw the numbers, you saw the strategy, you saw what to say, you saw how to click. I mean, she told you what to do. I mean, she gave you tips for how to integrate to Facebook, how to build your list after the fact, how to organize the list. But you know what, folks? All of this is great, phenomenal, extraordinary, exceptional, but you know what? You got to do it. You got to do it, right? And she told you, right? In the beginning, she confessed to you. She bared her soul and said, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did the best that I can. And then you learn from it, right? And you accept that, oh, rats, this wasn't the best choice in the beginning. But you know what? It's not a mistake, quote unquote. The mistake is seeing the value and not doing anything about it. That's really the mistake. Because even a basic email is gonna bring you success. Because it's gonna kick butt over your competition who's not doing it at all. And then when you link this with social media, like with the share bar and what she said, it's gonna drive more business back to you. And she gave you one specific example of how she posted one photo online and it just opened the barn doors, right? And then Constant Contact just allows you to grow that success. Now, if you're using Constant Contact, great, keep doing what you're doing. If you haven't gotten started, you need to get started. And I'm going to share a link with you. And because I'm a strategic partner, I can give you an exceptional deal if you're participating in the live webinar. And I'm sharing the link in the chat box right now. I'm sending it to the entire audience. That link will take you to a landing page. It explains what this deal is. You can get started for $5. $5 a month. You can follow Kathleen's steps and start with $5 a month. It's like, holy moly, right? You got to get started, folks. So if you haven't gotten started, click on the link. The link I'm showing you on the screen, that's the opportunity for people who are watching the recording, right? I can't, this is a super exclusive offer. I can't post it on the screen. Constant Contact won't let me. I can only give it to the live subscribers. And I don't know exactly how it works, but the link will expire at the end of the day today. So you need to take action right away. Now, if some of you still have more questions, Kathleen gave you her contact information. And you can also connect with me. Kathleen explained how I walked her through this strategy, and I'd love to be able to help you do this with your business as well. So you can schedule an appointment with me. If you want to go to buildingaspirations.com/appointment, there's an online calendar there. You can just click on there and schedule a no-cost phone consultation with me. Typically, if you do this via my website, just find it, that's $75. So this is a $75 value for the people who are participating today. See, what Kathleen, her success story, I coached her to do that. She did the work. She did the work, and I'll give her the kudos. She deserves it. But I helped direct her on what to do. So if you are excited, if you are motivated, and just need someone who can tell you what to do, I would love to schedule this phone call with you. I just shared that link in the chat box. Now, I am really a results-oriented person, and Kathleen really gave you some practical information. And thank you so much for participating. We'll sign off officially in just a couple minutes here. Kathleen, what's your last piece of advice for our listeners today?
Have a positive attitude towards whatever steps you take. That it's never failure. It's taking a step, and then when you take the next step, whatever that is, just look at the amount of improvement from the step previous, and know that you're on the right path for that reason. Don't start with a too far of an end goal in mind. Just start with the next step.
I love it. I love everything about that. Yeah, start with the win-win attitude. That's how this goes, folks. And I know some of you are intimidated. You look at these screens and you're like, I can't do that. You can't. I'll let you say that. You can't do that right now, right? but you can do it. Maybe not right now, this very moment, but with a little bit of expertise and a little bit of knowledge, absolutely. Now, you're participating in webinar one of a series. We have two more next week. Kathleen, you remember the title for next week?
It is how to run successful photo workshops.
How to run
Or
successful.
to sell out. Sell out. Excuse me. Sorry. How to sell out.
We're going to teach you how to sell out your live events because Constant Contact not only has the email marketing but also events registration in the packet. And Kathleen is going to show you, once again, very high practical information of how to make that work. So we appreciate everybody being here. We've recorded this entire thing. We hope you took some notes. But you know what? You'll be getting the recording of this tomorrow morning to your registered email address at 10:10 a.m. California time. That's 10:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So thank you so much to Kathleen Reeder of Kathleen Reeder Wildlife Photographer. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
Yes, well, it was great having you, and we look forward to two more webinars. This is only the first one of three. Woo-hoo! And thank you so much for Constant Contact hosting today. And this is Mark Mikelat thanking all of you for attending, and Kathleen and I will both see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.